This is an all-American story entitled All Shook Up. J.W. McCullough was one of those rare creatures that had been given, without asking for it, a second chance in life. After a tour in Vietnam and the Merchant Marines, J.W. returned to Philly and became a performing artist, playing guitar in rock and roll bands and in an Elvis impersonator band. His favorite guitar riff, he told me, was one that he scored for the impersonator band's rendition of All Shook Up. He also took up creating antics as performance art. Sometimes poetic, often comedic, his skits caught the eye of a producer in Philly who was able to hook J.W. up with a shot at a slot on a soon-to-launch NBC TV show called Saturday Night Live. 3 producers, one from Philly, one from Chicago, and one from New York, were cooking up this skit-centered take on comedy. A month before production was to begin, however, Chicago and New York conspired to dump Philly, and consequently, J.W. lost his chance. On the brink of standing in the national spotlight, and now back in the Philadelphia cold and dark, J.W. had a meltdown and attempted suicide by overdosing on alcohol and pills. He had since Vietnam been depressed. The VA eventually told him he suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome, a result of transporting munitions from the States to destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin during the war. He did not die, however, as his producer found him, and Hahnemann Hospital pumped his stomach clean. Thus, that second chance I mentioned earlier. For the rest of his life, J.W. had a perspective on things quite different from everybody else's. If you've given up the ghost and are somehow brought back to life, you see things differently. And J.W. saw the world as his stage for the next bittersweet 16 years. Now, I met J.W. at Jerry's Records on Colfax when I was making my first feature movie, Sylvia and the Green Bird. I was showing John Laquitas, the proprietor of Jerry's Records, some preliminary footage I had shot of his girlfriend, Juliet Johnson, in the role of Sylvia. J.W. was hanging around the counter, and he looked over at my shoulder at my camera's viewfinder and announced,
"Hey, if you guys are making a movie, I want in."
Picking up on his Philly accent and sensing a kinship because of it, and digging his attire. I mean, J.W. dressed with more flair than rock stars. I mean, he was wearing striped pants, turquoise-painted penny loafers with sporting gold coin saloon tokens where the pennies should have been, an embroidered baseball cap depicting an elephant, and a collarless button-up shirt, the buttons of which were also painted turquoise. And I said, "Sure." And thus began our 10-year friendship. As J.W. and I went on to finish the movie together, he is actor, co-producer, and singer. In the process, he became the brother I never had. And in fact, he became stepfather to my godfather to my youngest son, Zena the Star. Now, J.W.'s most lucrative job, his means of acquiring money, was to participate in drug studies. And he split his time between Denver and Philly, often staying with my family for short stints. We got along well, although I did come to realize that J.W. was a closet alcoholic after finding sundry empty pints and half pints of exotic whiskeys left about my house. John admitted to me his serious predilection, claiming,
I'm clean 75% of the time. My binges only last about a week.
He also told me he never had a drink in his life until at age 25 he heard the word mimosa. And liking the sound of it, he ordered one. And then another. And then another. And the next day, he went to a liquor store and bought a half a dozen pints of assorted whiskeys and rums, thus beginning his seesaw, lifelong battle with John Barleycorn, which he used to self-medicate his manic depressive condition. If truth be told, his drinking never really impacted our relationship. I mean, I had a lot of alcoholic friends. Hell, my father was one. And you take a brother as he is. Still, I would have preferred him sober. And I was always glad to have a companion. Whenever he returned from participation in those lockdown experimental drug studies back east. JW's justification for taking such risks was,
Well, they give you a placebo half the time, so it's only half dangerous.
and after release from a drug study in 1988, he was clean and sober and met up with a performing artist by the name of Vesna. Soon he and Vesna became a couple and an act, presenting what they called the Butterboat Show. They wowed the underground South Street art scene in Philadelphia and even won a Pennsylvania Council on the Arts grant for $10,000 to take their Butterboat Show on the road, eventually winding up in Florida. As I learned later, like just a few months ago, after reconnecting with Vesna on Facebook, Vesna had wanted to end things with JW. He was too manic and controlling and isolating, she said. But he had followed her to Florida. You might say he stalked her to St. Petersburg. But because he was unable to rekindle anything with Vesna, he again took up with his other love, alcohol. During his 6-month passionate affair with booze in Florida, he sent me dozens and dozens of incredibly sophisticatedly addressed envelopes filled with manic yet comedic poems and rambling homages to his artistic heroes, Prince and Elvis Costello. Even my super taciturn mailman remarked that he loved delivering my mail because he got to handle the art objects that were JW's envelopes. Who is this guy, he would say. Whoever he is, tell him I'm a fan. And then one day, JW appeared in the elevator door of my loft, drunker than I'd ever seen him, asking if he could stay with me until he got sober. The loft I lived in had a glass wall, as the second floor of 1444 Wazee Street had once been the corporate headquarters of Fashion Bar. JW was so out of it, he stepped off the elevator, walked into my living area, and then into the glass wall with such inebriated recklessness that he knocked himself out cold. He stayed a week, secluded in my loft, fighting withdrawal and depression before returning to the world, mostly clean and sober. He had enough bread from his last drug study to pay a month's rent at the New House Hotel on Colfax. He painted his room to match the color of his turquoise shoes, which matched the color of his newly acquired pawn shop electric guitar. During his last months in Denver, he took up antics again as performance art, but his performances were more in the real world than on the straight stage. Once, as he told me, hey, to give downtown workers an unexpected holiday in the middle of the week, he superglued the locks of dozens of office buildings on the 16th Street Mall. Awarded to Anonymous, his stunt received the Best Prank of the Year award from Westward. JW got away with his prank despite being videotaped by multiple security cameras, as his disguise included a wig and a dress and a slinky put-on sachet to beat the band. Eventually, however, he decided, as he told me,
I'm gonna go give Hollywood a shot at my talent.
And he moved to L.A. JW's second, and in this case, successful suicide attempt was his final piece of performance art. It unfolded over the course of a week. After the June 28, 1992 earthquake rattled Los Angeles, JW left a phone message for me on my answering machine.
Ed, I'm drinking again. Been sober the last year, but this quaking's got me rattled. It's just too much. Really, man, I'm all shook up and feeling whiskey deprived. By the way, did I tell you I finally made it? My name is listed in the Hollywood phone book.
When he did reach me a day later, we had a 3-hour-long distance phone call conversation in which he manicked his way about dozens of topics, alluding to many reckless behaviors that shall remain unmentioned he had taken up. He also told me how he had called everyone in the world he knew long distance, as he wanted to create the largest unpaid telephone bill in the history of Ma Bell. I didn't get the meaning of the word unpaid. Now, I had visited JW 3 months before the earthquake, and he had been his normal prankster self, living in a residential low-rent Hollywood hotel, doing performance art, guitar, and poetry at assorted bars and galleries, and at midnight on the sidewalks of Hollywood Boulevard. He made the rounds of LA friends I had turned him on to: Tony Sabella, Marcia Getzler, S.A. Griffin, Frank T. Rios. JW had wanted to visit my ex-wife with whom I had hooked him up, but when I called her, Carol, to tell her about getting together, she said, "Honey, you can come alone, but don't bring that man anywhere near me," as JW had apparently worn out his welcome at Carol's swank Beverly Hills film production headquarters. At the time of my visit, the sober JW owned a cassette recorder, a guitar, an iron and ironing board, a manual typewriter, and sundry wild outfits. When I said later, man, to him in early April, little did I know that it would be the last time I would speak to him in person. Anyway, after the earthquake, JW scrambled to accomplish a few items on his bucket list of antics. First, he convinced S.A. Griffin, a successful Hollywood actor and poet, to rent him a brand new Cadillac convertible. JW wanted to superstar it around Los Angeles, and they did. S.A. had always enjoyed being a wheelman. His performance art troupe traveled in a bus that said "even further." JW and S.A. toured for 6 hours around L.A., top down, with Elvis Costello tapes blasting on the stereo. JW honked and waved to all the street artists and street people he had befriended. A night later, JW called the national public radio station that was hosting its annual fund drive. JW told the hosts, two comedian DJs pleading for money,
I'm a hell of a guitar player, and I'll donate $100 every time you say the guitar player, J.W. McCullough.
Well, the comedians ran with it, and over the course of the next half hour, they worked the phrase, the guitar player, J.W. McCullough, into their spiel over 100 times. J.W. recorded what ensued on the radio with that cassette tape recorder and mailed me the tape that I'd characterize as the funniest radio bit I have ever heard. Sadly, I received this comedic masterpiece 2 days after S.A. called to let me know that J.W. had committed suicide. Apparently, J.W., who had been dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder for over 20 years, had stockpiled a year's worth of assorted medications the VA had given him. He cured his anxiety and depression once and for all by washing down handfuls of pills with sweet aperitifs and rum. Believe you me, the guitar player J.W. McCullough, his choice to end it all and the performance art ending that it was, shook me up as much as the earthquake shook L.A. The final riff, the last twitch of his fingers, most likely accompanied the thought,
I'm all shook up. Hey, I'm all shook up. my soul, what's wrong with me? It's like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting while it's a bug, I'm in love. I'm all shook up, ooh, ooh, yeah. My hands are shaking, my knees are weak. Can't seem to stand on my own 2 feet. Who do you think we have such luck? I'm in love. I'm all shook up, ooh, ooh, ooh. Please don't ask what's on my mind. I'm feeling mixed up, but I'm feeling fine. When I'm near a girl that I love best, my heart beats so it scares me to death. She touched my hand, what she like God. Lips are like a volcano inside. I'm proud to say she's my buttercup. I'm in love. I'm all shook up, ooh, ooh, ooh. My tongue gets tied when trying to speak. Inside shake like a leaf on a tree. There's only one cure for this body and mind, that's to have that girl. And love's so fine, can't stop damn when she's like God. Lips are like a volcano inside. I'm proud to say she's my buttercup. I'm in love. I'm all shook up, ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah. I'm all shook up.